But for those of you who don't know me in charge, my name is Eric Beadle. I am a sponsorship consultant and coach with the company. And today we are doing a live deck diagnosis of Josh Felber's deck here for his motorsport team. The point of today's discussion is to go over the best practices, the do's and don'ts, how to position your deck more effectively so that it is going to put you in a better situation to succeed when you're competing against other sponsors. Josh, I'll let you talk a little bit about your team, and then we'll jump into the presentation.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, Eric, I appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to this to really tear apart this and see how we can improve it and make it
Yeah.
better. My background, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 14 years old.
Yep.
Most recently came from digital marketing. We had a health company that we sold a few months back and used to run $10 million plus a year in digital marketing ad spend. So some of that may peel off in the deck as from that kind of perspective. But our boys started racing a few years ago, go-karts, when they turned 12 and a half. They started testing F4 cars and found out they were actually really fast, and they loved it and dove in to see what we could do to make this a career for them.
Sure.
And their goals to make it to Formula One. So we figured, all right, we got to dive in, all feet and everything now and figure out how to make this happen. And so one of the first thing was, all right, how do we find sponsors, offset some of the capital? And we put together this deck, and obviously we're trying to prep for 2025 for next year for the JS F4 series. We're going to run the full series and then start doing some international testing and things as well. And so we want to make sure as we get ready to reach out to some potential sponsors like Chipotle and some of the others that we have a deck that's super dialed in and, set up for, to be able to attract the right people for us.
Sure. So I know we had talked before, last week and a little bit this week. What is the sponsorship needed for? What does this allow you to do, allow your boys to do as you continue to develop your platform?
Definitely. I mean, one of the biggest things that helps us is offset our investment personally up front. It gives them the ability to test and get in the car more. The more they're in the car, the more they're practicing, the more they're learning, the faster and better they're going to get. It'll also allow us to start to make that transition overseas and start testing with some of the couple of the European teams that we've been in discussions with and everything, and start getting them in the spotlight of your Mercedes or Williams or Ferrari, whoever that might be, junior teams, with the whole idea of getting them picked up to pick up some of those costs. And so looking for sponsors that want to go on that journey with us, to attach their name to two amazing boys that are fast and, be able to bring them along the journey with us. And one of the cool things that we're doing as well, and I think it might mention it in the deck, but is a whole TV series that we're rolling out and everything as well that's tied to this. So
I am interested in talking a little bit more about that. We found that very interesting, so we'd like to dive into that when we get there. As we dive into your deck, a few things I really enjoy. It's a very action-packed deck as far as the imagery. And as you're reaching out to brands who aren't familiar with motorsport, this is going to show the excitement, the passion, and really kind of generates the interest of being involved. So I really love your use of imagery throughout here. But we do need to go through some tweaks. So, I'm not the bad guy here, but we'll go through some of the updates. So starting with the title is, you have your list of partners. And because this will ultimately be sent to an individual sponsor, I'd want to remove these because I think what it does, it eliminates some of that feeling of, hey, you're special, we're reaching out to you specifically. I want to avoid that mindset of, hey, this may be another name that we can plaster onto our deck, onto our car, but let's make it more specialized to them.
The other side of it too. Would you put that specific sponsor's logo right there? Or
you could certainly do that. We've done that in the past. But if you want to keep the layout of this page, that certainly could be an option. Absolutely. Now, I'm not a designer by hand, so if you're asking me to design it, give it to me. I wouldn't be the best one.
More feedback, yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, I do like the tagline. The only thing is, do you get questions from a sponsor of, can I support one versus the other? Or, can I split my investment just into one car? And so again, I know they're twins. I'm a triplet, so I get the play there. But I just was curious if that's ever something that occurs. But I don't want that to be something that somebody expects. Like, oh, I can split up my investment just to one of the children, which would be
Gotcha.
kind of a negative perception anyway. But just in case that's an opportunity.
We haven't yet, but yeah,
Yeah.
I totally
And
understand what
again,
you're
it's
saying.
probably few and far between, but just something that when I was reading it, it kind of stuck out to me. The other thing is, so before we get to this slide here where it says the what, I really think it's important to add a slide about the why. Why are you reaching out to these partners? And I think what that does, it helps bridge the gap, eliminates the confusion, and really upfront tells what you're trying to do. You're trying to connect your audience to them. You're trying to be a solution for them. And that's ultimately what the whole purpose of sponsorship is you're a solution to their marketing problems. So we want to identify that up front so that they're aware of and have an expectation of what this information is that they're receiving.
And on the why, would you keep it more broad or more niche, general, specific to what they
As far
that
as,
specific spot, just like that specific the why for that specific sponsor,
yeah, I
or would you keep
think
it
the
more
why
broad?
turns into, hey, we're reaching out to you because this is what our objective is. We have shared values. We want to position your audience with our audience and benefit you ultimately.
Right.
I mean, that's what the purpose is you are benefiting them.
Yep.
And now after that slide, what I would do is I would roll then into kind of more of the about us section.
Okay.
And here, and I think this is kind of what you were interpreting or your intentions were, but I would make this more about your team. So right here, when I initially read this, I thought this was about Luca Baldessari and Eric Jensen. Now I know they're important to your team structure as they've been brought on, and they're vital to your success. But I would still focus on the team, where you all have been, what you are doing, and I think you can add in there, with our commitment to continue to succeed, we've brought in two of the best experts in the space. But I would keep it more focused on who you all are because ultimately that's what this deck is trying to portray. This is who we are. This is why we want to connect with you.
Okay. Yeah. And we do have a little bit of about us further down, but I got it. So we'll put more there. And
Yeah,
part of it too was linking more of their credibility to the
sure.
boys that nobody may ever know yet.
Right,
And so that
absolutely.
was
And I
kind
get
of,
that. And that does it.
yeah,
It certainly brings that credibility. And I would always move that about us section up because, again, if
up
I'm a
here.
sponsor, I want to know who you all are first before
Got
I
it
keep reading
first.
it.
Okay.
So I think that would be a good piece to take into account.
Okay.
So again, I think this is another page that is the about us portion,
Mm,
and it's about Cash and Roman. And I really like
right.
this page. But as I continue to go through your deck, there's actually a slide where I think you could manipulate and move here that would actually tell a better story. So when I get to that page, I'll mention it.
Okay.
But again, in and of itself, if I didn't see that other slide, I would think, hey, this is great. But I thought there was another one that was even more purposeful and maybe even better for this particular section.
Okay.
But like I said, is to avoid going up and down. When I get to that page, I'll discuss it a little bit more. So when we got here, this is kind of where I started to think this is where we get into the meat of your deck, right? This is where you start identifying yourself as a solution to a sponsor. And my first suggestion would be is to have more demographic and psychographic information about your audience and have that be your introduction to this section. Now, I know later on you have some statistics about F1, uh, but I would drive more of that stuff here first because you're going to, again, show that you're relevant to who they are trying to reach. So I
Okay.
want that to be the first thing that you discuss. The other thing is, again, I really like this page, and you have your social call out to, I'm assuming, your X account, your Instagram account, and then you have Roman and Cash, their individual Instagram accounts, I believe.
Right.
And then here you go to the next page, you have social statistics. So what I would do is, I think this page right here, such a great page, has the boys are big, it has their social accounts. I would move this social data and combine it with this slide.
Okay.
And I think, again, it kind of shows, Cash, Roman, that's who you're looking at. This is their reach. This is how big they are. Now, this 100 plus million video views, is this from their platforms and from your team's platform?
No, this is the 100 million plus video views is through the overall motorsport demographics and everything that we pulled
Okay,
from.
so it's not specific to
Not
Roman and
that isn't,
Cash.
no.
Okay, so what I would do with these social statistics for Roman and Cash is try to get it really
Up here.
related to them.
Okay.
And I know you have a pretty robust YouTube page, looked at some of
Yeah.
your videos as well. But that's where I'd want this information because again, you're ultimately selling
Okay.
these two in your team and not necessarily, F1 or, other channel. You're selling your channels.
Yeah, 4 channels and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. So that would be my suggestion. And the other thing is if you had a slide like this with statistics, I like the paragraph, but it seems a little bit out of place. You start talking about we have 4 different sponsorship packages, but right now we're still talking about statistics and data.
Yeah.
So I would recalibrate this a little bit and really focus on we have a great reach, through our social platforms and making that kind of more the content if you're going to put content in here.
Yep, that makes sense.
So the next couple pages, I kind of combine into one conversation. So we have the Apple TV and the F1 TV statistics, and then we have F1 by the numbers. So again, kind of what I said is earlier is I want this to be specific to your team and your boys because what could be misleading is if you're going to a brand and they're seeing that, they're going to get eyeballs from 36,000 viewers per race. Are they going to get that through your team's race? They could, but I don't know if that's accurate. So I don't want to mislead.
Yeah, this would be accurate for like the F4, USF4 series and stuff.
Perfect.
Yes, that's where we pulled that data from for that.
That's fantastic then. Now, as far as when we come down here, is this more strictly to Formula One as an industry whole?
Yeah, so a lot of people, especially like we talk to, people find F1 and F4 and F2 and F5 through Drive to Survive. Like you talk to somebody on the airplane, like, oh, I love F1 and F2 and everything. I started watching Drive to Survive. So we wanted to tie in, hey, Drive to Survive, that's what's out there. Then there's also now Chasing the Dream with F2. And, so we're trying to tie in series so people start to anchor that in their brain. Like, oh, okay, I understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so this is demographics and data from this specific area. As they can see that market trend is continuing to grow.
Yeah, so I get the idea behind that. I would still try to separate it out that this is not what you all are bringing, because again, you're selling your team. But if you feel it's necessary to show the popularity of this sport, there could be a slide in there similar to this that says, this sport continues to grow. Here are some of the things that you're seeing as we develop from F4 to F1. Because then you could kind of talk about it from a standpoint of, as you continue to come with us, we're going to go higher and higher and higher, and your reach gets higher, higher and higher. But as far as
that's kind of what this slide was.
So that's what I figured. But I'd be prepared to answer that question. Like, hey, so you guys are in 27 markets. Well, right now you may not be, or you're not getting 6.8 million viewers.
Right.
You're not part of that series, but it does show this is how popular the sport is as we continue to increase through
and more people are becoming aware every day.
Exactly. So I would be prepared to answer that, and if need be, restructure that so it's more Cash and Roman based. And then say some more here. So again, I'm assuming this is all F1 by the numbers, it looks like. Again, I think it's a good story to tell to show the popularity of what's happening in this sport. But again, if I'm looking at it from a sponsor, my first reaction when I saw it was, if I'm a sponsor, am I really getting 1.5 billion views right now? And that answer would not be accurate.
Right.
So I make sure that is, if it's going to be in here, that it's spelled out correctly.
Yeah. I mean, we put F1. That's why we tried to differentiate that right there.
So that would be my comments, is try to keep this focus on the team. And then if you want to try to have some sort of information about the continued popularity, you could find a way to do that. So earlier I talked about your About Us section and you had the picture of your boys. I would almost, and this is, preference standpoint, I like this picture of Roman and the same for Cash. And it really talks about who they are, what they do, what they've accomplished. And I would almost take that and substitute for what you had because this breaks down, their success on the track, gives them a brief history of who they are. So I think when you're talking an About Us section, that logically really flows into, hey, here's who they are. This is what they do.
Mhm.
So if you go back to that slide, I would think about substituting that imagery for this imagery
Okay.
or somehow implementing that content because I think it's a
Gotcha.
great
Yeah.
introduction to the About Us. It's a great introduction to who the racers are. Um, so I think that would be a good call out.
Okay.
And I was looking at this the other day, and I couldn't now off the top of my head. I know one of them has a win versus the other one, so I'm sure that they like to point that out to one another.
Yeah. Oh, they do. I think, yeah, because Cash took first at Coda last November and Roman took
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
And
I'm sure he didn't let
and
him
then
forget that.
oh no. And then Cash took third in the recent series recently a few
Yeah,
months ago, and Roman had fourth. So
yeah. It's tough. It's tough
they
being a
rub it in.
multiple. Yeah. So then this is another slide. I really liked it because what I think it does is for somebody that might be naive to motorsports, and you're talking about young teenagers who are racing. I think initially it might be, oh, they race in Akron, Ohio. What you're showing here is this is the series. We're racing not just
Mhm.
in Ohio or just in Akron. You're racing in Florida, Louisiana, Wisconsin, Ohio, and Virginia. So you're
Yep.
spreading out your reach. You're hitting different targets. You're hitting different audiences, and I think that's a really neat piece to tell. So I really like this slide. My only suggestion would be I would maybe consider moving it up after kind of the About Us section with your boys. And
Mm.
this
Okay.
kind of flows directly in. This is who we are. These are the racers. This is where we race. So it all kind of logically falls in the plan. And then
Okay.
from there, it rolls perfectly into your demographic information, your psychographic information, and then other data points that you have.
Got it.
So that would
Yeah.
be my suggestion there, but I think it's a great slide. I
Okay.
love the imagery of all the different tracks. So no, I think it's a great slide. I would just think about maybe moving it up a little bit.
Okay.
So the deliverables, I know this is an area you talked to me a little bit earlier today that you've already changed a little bit, but we're gonna focus if it's still here, the based on
Okay.
your packages
Yeah, I
and
mean the
things like that.
deliverables part is kind of what we kept, but it was more
Yeah,
of the
the
packages.
pack. Yep, yep,
Yeah. So whenever we get to that, we can kind of go over
yeah.
why and stuff.
So what I like again is the deliverables, you breaking it down in we have branding opportunities and we have rights opportunities. Now there's two other sections that I would add is I
Okay.
would add a social category and I would add a hospitality slash VIP, whatever, probably more
Mm.
hospitality. And the reason I say that is when I went through the other pages, you had information in there that you have social opportunities
Yep.
and you have VIP opportunities. So I would make that it's a category. So really you would have four sections of categories to
Got
review.
it. Okay.
Um, and as much as I love the imagery, I would make this, and it's going to have to be a little bit bigger if you added those categories, but maybe eliminate some of it so the opportunities stand out a little bit more. Right
Okay.
now, like my eyeballs are going to the pictures and not as focused on maybe what the information is that's in there.
Okay.
But again, I mean, great imagery, but I would think about maybe just decluttering it a little bit.
Yep. Okay.
So then we go into your packages. So my initial, before you mentioned that you had adjusted, my initial feedback was we typically are very big on not doing packages. We do not believe in the gold, silver, bronze approach. We are big on you're providing these opportunities and we can do customized opportunities that fit your needs. And that's
Yep.
ultimately what it is. Ken, our president, he always makes a great analogy. And for a while, it took me a minute to wrap my head around it, but he said, if you wear a size 10, you're not going to go shop at a shoe store that's only sells size 12 because it
Right.
doesn't fit your needs and what you have to have.
Yep.
And so we kind of take that similar approach here in the sponsorship that is, let's not predetermine what a sponsor needs because in my mind, you may undervalue yourself. You may price yourself out, or it just may not be of interest because you told them this is what you need. So I would
Yes.
focus on, you go back to this page. Here's what we have to offer. Let's talk about a customizable approach. Now, inevitably, you're always going to get the question of what's the cost? I mean,
Right.
it just is. And what we suggest is you provide that range. We have sponsorship packages ranging anywhere from $20,000 to $200,000. And that way they get an idea of right off the bat, is 200,000 going to be in their budget, or are they going to be on the lighter side of that budget? So you're
Yep.
being upfront with it, but we're not going to predetermine what their package may look like.
Yeah, no, and that's what originally we're like, okay, cool, the package
Mhm.
option. And then everybody that we were working with, they're like, oh, well, can I do this? And can I do this?
Yeah.
And so they all ended up being custom
Yeah.
packages. And so I was like, all right, we might as well just remove them because nobody's going to pick one of those anyways.
Right. Exactly.
And
And so it sounds like the easy approach. Let's just go ahead and do it. But then as you start asking for more and more significant investments, let's get away from that because you're going to get more of, hey, this is what we want. How
yep.
can we do this? So that's, and it sounds like you guys have already done it. Um, so my
Yeah, so we
whole,
just removed those the
yeah,
platinum, gold, and silver package
yeah. So my
options.
whole spiel was burned from you
No, it's
earlier,
all good.
getting in front of me about it.
It's
Yeah,
all good. I kind of figured that's what it would be, but we had already
yeah,
took that approach just based on it. Just everybody was customizing, and the good thing too is like all of our pretty much our packages that we did sell were like 50 to 300K range. So
yeah, yeah. So you get an idea then.
yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing, and again, I'm sure it's now been modified a little bit, was this initially caught me off guard. I don't want it to look like you're devaluing your property or your packages. Uh, so one way we could really kind of change that approach is, we're providing you an opportunity at $200,000 with a $500,000 value. So it sounds like you're giving them a good
Yeah, that's what
opportunity,
yeah.
as opposed to it like, hey, we're slashing this down because initially when I see it, it's like, oh, they must not be selling any of these
It's the other
packages.
way, yeah,
Yeah,
because this one they're getting all this stuff plus the TV,
yeah,
the series and things like that, and so that was, hey, this is the value of what it is. If but we're gonna
yeah,
give it to you for this now.
yeah. So just simple tweaks. But I do like, you do mention in here, and this is why I brought up in your benefits, you talk about VIP passes,
Mm-hmm.
social media. So that's why I suggest adding those categories back into your menu of
Yep.
opportunities available.
Okay.
And then I know we go through a couple pages here of, similar packages. But again, I think the easy way around it is you provide that range.
And then would you just have one page, or would you just stick with the one that you initially had that had the 4 columns that we'll
Yeah,
use
so
and
what I would
have the
do
different
is I
content?
would I would have that page with columns, and then the other thing, and I'm glad you brought it up because it was going to be my next point, is the one piece that is missing is activation ideas. You
Mm,
talk about
yep.
on-site opportunities, you talk about VIP tickets, so you can already pre-generate, hey, here's what we can do for you at the track.
I have
Um,
some of those now too. Yeah.
yeah, so I would put that in after maybe your different categories, and that would be your secondary page. But as far as the tiers, we would suggest getting
Right.
rid of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have some different activations based on different industries and stuff like
Okay,
that, and that we can put little highlights from or whatever.
sure, sure. I had no real, obviously, it's a great picture. Is both of your boys are on there.
Yep.
So again, it's kind of a filler. You know, the only reason I would remove it is if your deck is getting too long and they're already seeing great photos, but um, that's just more of a call out. I mean, it's a great
Yeah.
picture. They're on the podium, and it's a great shot of them being interviewed. So it's a really pretty cool to see. This is another page I really liked because again, it shows your reach and the expansion and your ability to be in front. You're not just some local team, like I said, from Akron. You're on MSN and you're in Forbes, and you have a pretty big audience. And so I would leverage that, and I'd probably move it up to where, after your social reach, here's
Okay.
our media. This is where we get exposed at. Uh, but it's a really good slide. It's really pretty powerful. And I went
Would
through and looked it up a little bit, and pretty cool to see.
would you add anything else? Because like we made that's it's over here was the Miami News 10, which was run the same weekend as F1 this past May. So that's what this is over here on the left side. And so we are featured on a whole series that whole
Okay,
weekend during the F1 race weekend and stuff
I
in
got you. I got
Miami.
you. Yeah, I mean,
So, but
anything that shows like the additional coverage that you have in
okay,
reach, put it in there.
okay,
Because again, I think a lot of people who are not going to be, part of the racing space, it's kind of blow their mind a little bit that, young teenagers have this kind of exposure.
right.
Um, you know, in other sports, that's really not even a thing unless you're, a LeBron James at 13 that's getting the exposure, but you're getting it now. You're in major publications, major news outlets. So yeah, this is a pretty big deal.
That's where all my skills lie.
Yeah,
Driving media and content and
yeah.
exposure.
And impressed that they're comfortable in front of the camera like that. I would
They
be at
are.
that
They
age. I don't
actually
know if I would
are.
have been. So
We've
very
worked with
good.
them.
And this it really kind of wraps up your contact us page. The only thing I want to mention is there's no contact link or anything with your information. Uh, so I would make sure that information is obviously put in there. The other call out would be just the sponsors again.
So take those out.
Yeah, I would take those out. And again, I would add your contact information, who the best is,
Okay.
or
Yeah, I think we
make
it
it a
was in
link.
the email. So, but okay, you're just saying put it right in there then. Okay.
Yeah, because if it gets passed around or forwarded to somebody else
Oh
in an
yeah,
office, this way
true.
they have it right there. So I would make sure that that's added in there.
Okay.
Um, and then I'm assuming these last couple pages are just showing where their locations on the vehicle would be if they got a sponsorship.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and you might be able to do this, might be able to move this up when you start talking about your different benefits and opportunities, and then you have activation ideas to kind of have that up there
Okay.
as well. So they're seeing it and then not waiting till the end to see
Till
it.
the end. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, overall, I mean, like I said, the imagery is fantastic. I think the information's there. But there would be some restructuring type of things that I would suggest. But what
Cool.
questions do you have?
I mean, I think I was asking them kind of throughout. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure.
we knocked them out, and it kept clarity as we were going through it and everything. So, no, I think it totally makes sense, and I like how kind of some of the movement of some pieces for the
Yeah.
flow restructure totally makes sense overall for it, and combining some stuff and everything as well.
Yeah.
So, no, I think it's really good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. We enjoy doing it. Uh, I'll stop there and see if there's any questions from some of our viewers. And again, I want to apologize with the technical difficulties that we had. So I appreciate for those that stayed on and listened to the deck diagnosis. We'll give it a minute here. And I don't have anything coming up yet. Let me just hop on the other screen. Yeah, I don't think there are any questions. So, Josh, what I can
Okay.
do for you is I had this marked up. You'll see little yellow boxes. So if you want to go back and reference something, you can see it. And then obviously we can provide the recording your way as well.
Oh,
So
perfect. Yeah. That way I can
I
send it to
appreciate you
my
jumping on here.
editor, and they can go back and
Yeah,
move
exactly.
stuff
Yeah.
around
Let them splice it up. But I
and
certainly
everything.
appreciate you jumping on, and
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where your boys go. And
Uh,
I know the Apple TV connection. Hopefully that comes out, and we can say we knew the boys before they became real famous. So
yeah, Apple TV, that's one of the areas. We just got the final TV promo. It's about 17 minutes long, so it's a promo clip for the series. So we just got that finished up and gonna get ready to start sending all those pieces out. So we have them, and I think we're gonna reach out to like Speed Sport
okay,
and Hulu and a couple of the other different networks to see who we can get that wants to broadcast and run the series and everything. So
okay, fantastic. All right, well, enjoy that Florida weather, and
yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
make sure you get back to Ohio in the winter months.
Yeah. Try to avoid it as much, but
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. And then just as soon as you can, just, yeah, send the markups over,
Yeah.
and then the video recording would be awesome. So,
Yeah. Good deal.
all right. Thanks, Eric.
All right.
Appreciate
Thanks,
your
Josh.
time
All
again.
right.
Bye bye.
Yep. Bye.